Welcome to the Level Up Life podcast. I'm your host, Scottie Hobbs, where we're here to remind you that your family is your most important work, help you feel better, and learn how to earn more income for your family. I'm here with my friend, Dr. Alan Jones. Alan holds a PhD in health sciences with a focus on nutritional biochemistry and human performance. He also earned a Master of Science in Human Nutrition and a specialty in nutritional biochemistry and a Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology. His expertise centers on sarcopenia and related chronic diseases worsened by age-related loss of muscle mass, quality, function, and strength. As a specialist in extending health span, Jones is passionate about educating the public on the detrimental effects of muscle loss on a metabolic health, longevity, functional independence, and quality of life. My friends, welcome to the show.
Well, originally I'm from a little bitty town about 70 miles north of Amarillo, Texas. That's where I grew up on working on farm and a ranch, and grew up, just hunting and fishing and doing all kinds of stuff. Love sports. Was fortunate to get to go to Texas Tech University and attempt to play a little football for the Texas Tech Red Raiders. And then got out of school, strictly by accident, went to work for a nutrition company, decided to go back to school, get my master's degree in human nutrition, and then go back to school again, Scottie, and get my PhD in health sciences, but my area of specialty is nutritional biochemistry and human performance. And so today I'm the vice president of research and development for Make Wellness.
That's awesome. So that's 60 years worth of life into 3 minutes. You did really awesome at that. I want to touch on a couple of things, because when I'm working with someone, like the name of our team, of the business that we're building, is Team Level Up. This podcast is the Level Up Life. Now, to play football at a college level, you have to be pretty level up. You have to work hard. What's your story like? How long did you play football? What position did you play? What did you see? What do you believe made you successful enough to go play at the college level?
Well, fortunately, I was blessed by my parents with a little bit of size. So, my playing weight, my college football playing weight, I was 6'3", 292, 95 pounds at the time. And I played nose guard. So I was a defensive lineman, one of the, most difficult, roughest, hardest positions on the football field. And, I was really fortunate that I had a defensive line coach. His name was Dean Slayton. Coach Slayton just absolutely loved me because I was a very hard worker. I didn't know anything but hard work. I never have, really. It's the way I grew up. And Coach Slayton just, kind of took me under his wing, and I became one of his boys, and was very fortunate to have his mentorship and his teaching at Texas Tech. So it's fantastic, man. He died a couple years ago, and it was a very sad day for me. But I tell you what, Scottie, a lot of what I do today, even I still think about how Coach Slayton would have handled things. I mean, he was that much of an impact on my life. So it was pretty good time.
I love that. What do you think is one of the best lessons you learned from Coach Slayton?
Never quit, never give up. You just, no matter what, you fight like crazy. And he was just that way. He just taught us how to, even though at that particular time, Texas Tech, we weren't number 4 in the nation like we are now. Yeah. We were really a lot of, lower level recruits and walk-ons, but our coaches, Spike Dykes was our head football coach, Coach Slayton, and they would take, guys that weren't as highly recruited as, the University of Texas or Texas A&M or some of the other Southwest Conference schools at that particular time. And man, they would just turn them into football players and just work really hard. And so we had outstanding, hardworking individuals. And I think that was the biggest lesson is, you just don't quit, you work hard. And if you got a problem, you face it head on, and you do not ever stop. You don't run from your problems. You basically attack them and then move on. So
I love that. I think we can clip that right here and just end it. That was awesome. Work hard, don't quit. Find a
No
mentor in your
quit.
life that pushes you and challenges you to be better and to and put you in a room with other people that are willing to do that hard work
Exactly.
and push
Exactly.
forward. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
when you're on a football field, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and I've seen all of it, and I've done all of it, and so, but we just had a great group of fantastic football players. Some of my best friends are still from that time, and even though as far as level of athlete goes, I was not a high level athlete by any means. But, my best friend was our starting middle linebacker, all Southwest Conference, went to play for the Denver Broncos, just outstanding. And so you surround yourself by guys you want to be like. And that's kind of that key. I heard Andy Andrews say, a few years back, persist without exception. I
Mhm.
would I would say that is the number one thing about the lessons that you learn through playing in an atmosphere like that. You persist without exception. There's no excuses. You just make it happen.
Yeah. So I love that. So you had your experience playing sports, having an awesome coach, playing with other incredible players. Your parents obviously had you work, it sounds like had that you working on a farm and ranch growing up.
Yep.
I remember when I first met you, I'd listened to your science calls back starting in October of 2024, and I went to an event that fall, and I shook your hand. And I was like, "This is a big dude. Like this guy is
Yeah.
strong." So,
Yeah, Scotty, I've had so many people that I've met. They see us on our podcast or on our shows because I started teaching Make Wellness Products actually the first week of August in 2024. And
okay.
so, we were having 2, 3, 4,000 people on our Thursday night trainings. And then we'd go to an event and they're like, man, you're a lot bigger than what I thought you were. So you don't look that big on the computer. So anyway.
That's funny. I first started my health and wellness journey in 2010, and I lost 39 pounds. I was just like the fluffy dad bod. I got
Mhm.
abs for the first time at the age of 29, and I would do before after pictures. And we went to a big event. And my first big event, I spoke at the MGM Grand because I built a business.
Wow.
In 14 months, I built a six-figure business from scratch, and I was working 12-hour days in a steel factory, had this great
Mhm.
transformation, built a team in business. They had me speak on stage because my wife and I were walking away from our full-time jobs.
Yeah.
That was June of 2011.
Mm.
And it was very opposite of what people told you. They'd come up, they'd meet me, and they'd be like, "You're a lot smaller than you look in those pictures." And I'm like, "That's the last thing you want to tell me, man."
Yeah.
But
Yeah. No kidding.
I'm 5'11", and I started at like 187 ish, and I'd
Yeah.
gotten down to like 145. So I was very small compared to what they
Yeah.
thought.
Well,
Um,
I'll tell you what, when I met you at the convention that we were at together, I mean, you're not a small guy and you're a strong dude too. So,
it's
you
taken,
have put in the work, Scotty Hobbs. I'm
yeah,
telling you right now, for sure.
yeah, 15
Yeah.
years. So I've just been
Mhm.
consistent now, 15 years at working out. And so I've fallen in love with building muscle. And so one of the reasons that I'm excited to have you here is one of your specialties is working with sarcopenia, right?
Mhm.
So
Yep.
can you talk to us just a little bit about what that is, why that's important?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've spent the last 2 years doing nothing really but researching sarcopenia and teaching people how to, prevent that condition from attacking your body because there's so many things that rely upon muscle mass for just our overall health and well-being. But what sarcopenia is, there are a few different types of sarcopenia. There's a primary sarcopenia, there's a secondary sarcopenia, and then there are some offshoots of sarcopenia that are related to diseases such as cancer or frailty, some of the other conditions that also lead to us losing muscle mass. But what it is it's basically the loss of muscle mass, function, and strength. And I've even gone more to add muscle quality to that as well, because muscle quality is really kind of the overarching solution to preventing the loss of mass, function, and strength. And so if we'll pay attention to our muscle quality, not allow things like myosteatosis, which is, fat infiltration into our muscles. If we not allow myosteatosis to occur, then we're going to improve our muscle quality, which improves muscle density, which improves all of those other things, function, mass, and strength. So, yeah. And Scottie, I have to tell you, the reason that I started really studying and focusing on sarcopenia is I sat there and I watched my dad die of this disease. And, it was devastating for me at that particular time. Nobody knew really what was going on. Doctors didn't have a clue. And most doctors still do not have a clue what sarcopenia is. And, there are no drug interventions for it. There are no, pharmaceuticals. You can't take a pill for it. The only interventions for it are diet and exercise related. And as a result, no doctors are really detailed on it, how devastating it is, and so they just don't know how to deal with it. So most physicians, even though it is a world recognized disease that impacts upwards of about 40% of our population, they just don't know what it is. So it's a massive, massive problem with no pharmaceutical solution.
Yeah.
So,
Man, that stat's mind-blowing to me. 40% of people have sarcopenia,
yeah,
some level of it.
some level of sarcopenia. And yep, that's right.
That's
So,
a epidemic in a way. Like you hear stats about
yeah,
obesity and the percentage. I don't even know what that is these days,
about
but
70%. Yeah.
wow, 70% have obesity, 70% sarcopenia. So what would you let's touch base. When did your dad pass from that?
It's about 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
And were there signs? Like how did you guys figure this out? Like
Oh,
what were
yeah.
the how long did he suffer from that? Like I just like to understand because people out there, if like 40% of the population is like
Yeah.
almost
Well,
half the people listening to this.
yeah. My dad and my mom, I'll kind of use them together because they were the perfect case study. I've got my dad who, he would go play golf, play 3 or 4 rounds of golf. Of course, he's riding in a golf cart, gets out, takes 2 steps, hits a ball, gets back in a golf cart, goes. His exercise was golf, right? And
Mhm.
so, I used to tell him, Dad, you need to get your butt in the gym. You need to, you need to walk, you need to exercise. Well, he thought his 3 or 4 rounds a week of golf were exercise. They're not. Just because you're swinging that golf club doesn't mean you're contracting your muscles, you're building your muscles, you're really, other than the muscles of the golf swing, you're not using a whole lot of big muscles and so forth. My mom, on the other hand, goes to the gym 5 or 6 days a week. And she's almost 80 years old and she still does this today, goes to the gym 5 or 6 days a week. She resistance trains, she does her aerobic training. So she does a combined training regimen and she is as healthy and strong as I ever remember my mom being. But she's done that ever since she was a kid. And she was a very good athlete growing up as well. So, you know, I watched those and I watched what started to happen with my dad. And what happened was he literally started losing muscle mass, started losing some strength, and I started noticing it in his hands. You got a really powerful muscle that kind of controls your grip right here in between your forefinger. You
Mhm.
look at that muscle right there. If you look at people when they begin to get sarcopenia, it's what I noticed about my dad. That muscle literally deteriorated all the way down. I mean, it was like nothing right all the way through there. And you could literally just kind of trace the bones of his hand. And I started to notice that. I was like, Dad, man, you got to do something about that. Get you some grippers or something and start doing gripping exercises. You got to start strengthening your hands back. Well, come to find out, as I researched, Scottie, one of the number one indicators of sarcopenia is reduced hand grip strength.
Oh, wow.
No kidding. So you've got this little tool called a dynamometer that every doctor's office in the world should have in every exam room because You can go in and you can do a simple hand grip strength test and start to determine whether or not somebody has early onset sarcopenia, or you might want to call it early onset muscle loss prior to the diagnosis of sarcopenia. So I started noticing that about my dad. I was like, man, you got to do something about that. And so, then you try to get him to work out. Now I worked out today. I played golf. Well, what happened was he started losing his muscle mass. He started losing his metabolic resilience and his metabolic flexibility and all those things that our muscle mass is responsible for. Well, then his bones started to crumble. And he literally started to have a deteriorating spine where his lower lumbar spine literally started to just deteriorate and fall apart. And so by the time that he had passed, he was about, I don't know, 85, 90 pounds, skin and bones, had lost pretty much all of his muscle mass, had multiple fractured discs in his back, so many so that even an orthopedic surgeon that specializes in doing back, reconstruction, they were like, there's nothing we can do. There's not enough bone for us to even reconstruct. We can't even put enough metal in him to hold him together because there's nothing to guide the metal on his spine. And so it was horrible. And, but I sat there and I watched him not really understanding what was going on. Doctors didn't know what was going on. They didn't have a clue. And, at that particular point, I started studying and figured, you know what, I'm going to learn what that is. And I'm going to prevent as many people as I possibly can through education and teaching. I'm going to prevent that from happening to others. And so he basically inspired me at that particular time. I decided to go back to school, get my PhD. I'd already started, believe it or not, I'd already started working on my PhD. And my PhD program was really, there's two phases to it. The first phase, there's about 15 classes that you have to take that pretty much every PhD student has to take. There's about 6 or 7 mandatory classes. And then you get into your area of specialty, which mine, nutritional biochemistry and human performance. So I took all those. That took about 2 years to do. And then I started working on my dissertation. And he, in about year 1.5, started experiencing this. And when I figured out what it was, I was like, yep, there's my dissertation topic. There's my research. That's my study. That's what I'm about to dedicate the rest of my life to right there. So that's how I got to where I'm at today.
I got the chills all over, man. You
Yeah.
hear the saying, there's the two greatest days in your life are the day you're born and the day you figure out why. And I'm
Yep.
sure you've had many different experiences like that throughout your life, but that's a pretty powerful one to be like, this is something that's caused extreme pain in our lives,
Mhm.
and I want to make sure that I help as many people as possible not go through what we went through.
Yep.
But
That's
then to
exactly
actually
right.
do something with it is inspiring to me. So thank you for sharing that. So how old
Yeah.
were you when you started working on that PhD?
I was 54,
54.
54, Scotty, old man. Yeah.
You
So
know,
54 when I started, 58 when I finished.
you just finished that PhD, right?
I
When
just
did you
finished.
finish?
I finished on November the 18th. It was my defense day, and it was a great day. It was. Uh, I was very confident going into that day. I knew my topic. I was
Mhm.
so passionate about my topic. And the way a defense works, you go in and you give a presentation of all your research and you lay it out. And you've got your entire committee, because you've got your chairman and you've got your other committee members, and then you've got your statisticians and your methodologists, and you've got anybody else who wants to come in and watch and ask questions while you're doing this defense. So I laid out all my research. It took me about an hour and a half to do all that. So it was a big presentation. And then one of my main committee members happened to be married to a functional medicine doctor. And man, did she tear into me. Not in a bad way,
Yeah.
Scotty. It was a great way because she knew what I was talking about. and her husband certainly knew what I was talking about. And man, I tell you, she questioned me for a solid hour on my defense. And by the time she got through questioning me, it was like my methodologists, my statisticians, my other committee members, they're like, I don't really know what else to ask. Dr. Wheeler kind of took it over. And so, they would ask a couple little small questions here or there. But by the time she got through wearing me out, there was really nothing else to ask. And it was pretty neat. Then they go into deliberation, have a chat about it, and then come back out and they either let you know that you're good, you're done, or nope, you've got more work to do. And so it's a little bit of a nerve-wracking time, but the shorter the better. Well, it took them about a minute and a half and they were calling me back in. And so yeah, it didn't
Cool.
take long. So it was
Well,
pretty neat experience.
congratulations. That's incredibly
Yeah.
inspiring.
Thank
So,
you.
a lot of people sometimes might think like you might chuckle at these ages I throw. I'm kind of just throwing them out there. I'm 35 or I'm 40, I'm 45. It's too late for me to change my path. Like I'm already too far down this
Nope.
journey. So you're a great example of it's never too late to make a pivot.
No, Scotty, I just call it redeploying. Um, because prior to starting my PhD, I was actually the CEO of a pretty good sized pharmaceutical manufacturing company in Fort Worth.
Wow.
And so I had been there for 3 years. I was there during the whole COVID, issue back in 2020. I think I was there at 2019, 2020, 2021. And so, I had been the CEO of that company. I was the CEO of, two other companies prior to that. So I don't think you're ever too old. You said it perfectly a while ago. It's a great day when you figure out what you're put on this earth to do. And that's, watching my dad was really what helped me. But I'll tell you what, the experience at the pharmaceutical company also helped me a lot too, because I figured out I did not agree with a lot of the philosophy and a lot of the mentality of the pharmaceutical world. And so after 3 years of dealing with that, I wanted out and I was disgusted by it, honestly.
Yeah, that's what
So,
the question that was lingering in my mind was being that you were the CEO of a pharmaceutical company and now, right now, working with Make Wellness, which is bioactive precision peptides, peptides extracted from nature. What do you love about what Make Wellness is doing or the science behind the bioactive precision peptides? Could you just kind of walk us through what bioactive precision peptides are, why you love what we're doing here, or
yeah,
and even how it aligns with what your passion is with sarcopenia?
yeah. Do you mind if I kind of go back in time just a little
You
bit?
absolutely go back.
All right. So, being from the pharmaceutical world, um, kind of somewhat displeased with what I learned about that part of, I would call it health and wellness, which they're not really involved in health and wellness. They're really involved in sick care and they don't really care about health and well-being. Um, their philosophy is to, let's see if we can make somebody feel 20% better. And if we can do that, then we've got a customer for life. And to me, that's kind of a sick, sadistic philosophy because that's not my philosophy. When I started looking at sarcopenia and started really researching sarcopenia, I started to notice these therapeutic peptides. And, I had done in my dissertation, in my lit review, I'd done a big section of information and study on therapeutic peptides because I thought that there was a tremendous possibility that therapeutic peptides may be the solution to sarcopenia. We don't have drugs. We don't have any pharmaceutical interventions. There's nothing approved by the FDA to treat sarcopenia. We got this massive problem here. And now all of a sudden, we've got these therapeutic peptides that are showing some tremendous promise. So I had studied therapeutic peptides and I was and am a believer in therapeutic peptides. I think there's a place for them. What I didn't like about the therapeutic peptide side was that there's potentially a lot of potential adverse effects. So I was very concerned about that. So you had to be very careful in how you use those in the prevention and reversal of sarcopenia. here comes Justin Prince. So I knew Justin from, I've known him for about 6 years now, but I knew Justin from a prior business that we were both involved in. I was on the scientific and medical advisory board of his former company.
Okay.
Justin calls me and says, "Hey, I want you to look at something, and I want you to think about coming on board and being a part of this with us." And Scottie, I was the most skeptical individual because I had believed all of the stuff that says that, peptides derived from food are not stable and you can't use, you know what? And I have learned that that was so wrong. And so I told Justin, I told him there's two things that I told him. I said, okay, because I love Justin Prince,
Mm-hmm.
I will do the research and I will find out if these are legit, number one. And number two, if you can show me a research study that our products inhibit a myokine called myostatin, I'm on board. And Justin's like, okay, I don't know what myostatin is, but I'm going to have our partner that develops the peptides send you some research studies. I'm telling you, the very first research study, Scottie,
Mm-hmm.
showed a 37% inhibition of myostatin right there in the study. And I was just like, okay, God, I'm in. And so
Yeah.
literally, that's what I was kind of being a smart aleck to Justin and Truman, which, it wasn't them. I just didn't believe because I believed all the crap out there about bioactive peptides are not stable. Well, let me tell you something. When I started doing my deep dive and my research, and I decided to become a part of Make Wellness, man, let me tell you, there is a ton of science behind bioactive peptides. There are also, our bodies are innately built to transfer and transport bioactive peptides to receptors throughout the body. And did you know, I don't know if you know this or not, you probably have heard me talk about it before, Dr. Mark talk about it before, but our bodies have multiple peptide transport systems inside our body. And literally the day that we're born, those peptide transport systems start transporting peptides that are to, their purposes is to build up those peptides purposes is to build the immunity of the baby from peptides transferred through colostrum from breastfeeding. So, literally, from the day we're born, our bodies transport bioactive peptides to messengers throughout our entire body. Okay. So, I started putting all this stuff together and I'm like, okay, well, let's think about it from a much broader perspective. So, I go eat a steak dinner and I've got 70 or 80 grams of protein. Does it make sense to you that every single gram of that protein is broken all the way down to the constituent amino acids, free form amino acids, and all those amino acids are used basically to build muscle? No, it doesn't. As I started to really think about, can you imagine the amount of digestion that would have to take place to break these massive, massive, huge sized proteins down into single amino acids without a very large part of those basically maintaining their peptide bonds and becoming peptides transported throughout the body? Well, then you start to find out that there are specific bonds built within amino acids that are just innately preventative of being broken down. Okay. And then you have all of these different peptides that are bioactive in the body. They have different terminal endpoints. There's all kinds of features built into natural bioactive peptides that actually prevent them from being broken down and allow them to be transported through those peptide transport systems throughout our body to be used as the messenger that they're meant to be used for. So as I got into this whole area of study, of course, my big deal again is sarcopenia. I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking, wow, we've got these specific peptides One is an anti-inflammatory, and I'm talking about fit now. One is an anti-inflammatory that helps prevent inflammation. The other is a muscle protein synthesis enhancer that helps activate mTOR to enhance muscle protein synthesis and build muscle. So, two of our biggest issues in sarcopenia are inflammation, muscle loss. So, I've got two peptides right here that have been proven to prevent inflammation and enhance muscle protein synthesis, while at the same time inhibiting myostatin, which is the myokine responsible for breaking down our muscle. So I was, as I got into it, I'm like, okay, this is real. This is legit. I'm in. Let's go. Because the fact of the matter is, you've got to be very mindful of the adverse effects of therapeutic peptide drugs. You've got to be very careful in how you use those. Whereas bioactive peptides, because they're a protein derived peptide, naturally, they react completely different in the body, yet they still have very, very powerful functions.
Yeah. So I have a question on that. I've heard you talk about like a feedback loop, the difference
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
between in a synthetic therapy or a therapeutic peptide and in a natural peptide. Could you just
Yeah.
walk through what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So with a therapeutic peptide, because they're modified and basically they're modified for one purpose, and that's to extend the half-life of that peptide. Now, think about half-life like this. Let's say that I've got 1,000 milligrams of an active ingredient in the body, and the half-life of that is, let's say, 24 hours, one day. At the end of one day, I still have, instead of 1,000 milligrams, I've basically used up 500 milligrams of that. And what's remaining is half
Okay.
of that. Okay. 500 milligrams the next day. I go take another 1,000 milligrams. Now all of a sudden I have 1,500 milligrams available. 24 hours later, that 1,500 milligrams, it's going to cut in half again. Now it's going to be 750 milligrams. Guess what? I've got 750 milligrams. I take 1,000 milligrams. Now all of a sudden I have 1,750, and it just goes on and on.
Okay.
The half life of some of these therapeutic peptide drugs lasts for 7 days. Okay. Now, if I'm talking about a half life of a GLP-1 receptor agonist, for example, of 7 days, and I'm taking a dose every 7 days, at the end of that 7 days, I've still got half that dose remaining, and I'm adding another full dose. What that is telling my body is that I don't need to naturally produce whatever that peptide is in the body endogenously. I don't need to produce it any longer. Okay. Because I've got all this extra in there. That's called a negative feedback loop. When you activate that negative feedback loop, the feedback loop is either going to tell your body, I need to produce GLP-1 or I need to not produce GLP-1. That
Gotcha.
negative is telling me I'm not going to produce it. I don't need to produce it. And what happens over a significant amount of time, our bodies forget how to produce it, which can lead to some pretty serious long-term adverse effects. Does
Okay.
that make sense? That's kind of a
That's
long
the
reason.
best. No, that's the best I've ever heard it explained. So
Yeah.
thank you.
So it all has to do with half-life. People think that half-life, Scotty, is a lot of times it has to do with stability in water. It has nothing to do with stability in water, right? That's stability.
Mhm.
Half-life is about biological activity, not stability. And so if I've got something that's got a half-life of 7 days, at the end of 7 days, I've still got half of that active dose in my system, and it's still very much biologically active at that half dose. At
Yeah.
the end of another 7 days, I've still got a quarter of that dose still in there if I haven't taken anything else, and it's still biologically active at a quarter of that dose, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. So when I first heard about these natural peptides, I did research at the same time, more diving into therapeutic peptides. I was like, I need to know what peptides are in general. Like I'd heard the phrase, but I hadn't really dove into that.
Yeah.
And so I had heard some of the possible negative side effects of therapeutic peptides, which is kind of what you talked about with the negative feedback loops. Now, I was excited about Fit. I just saw 4 times the muscle protein synthesis, and I love lifting weights, so I'm like, I'm in. Like if that's
Right.
like 4 times more effective than a whey protein shake, I'm in. What I didn't really catch or hear or understand was lowering the inflammatory response.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you know this about my journey, but I tore my well, I have a plate right here with like 7 screws. I'm a
Oh,
snowboarder
wow.
and I shattered this collarbone. And then I lead the youth of our church and we were on a 3 night like they call it a high adventure camp out. And I tried to out throw them throwing rocks into the reservoir.
Yeah.
And I tore this rotator cuff. I was like 40, I'm 44 now. And I did PRP injections, if you know what those are. I did
Hmm.
some stem cell stuff. I did dry needling, physical therapy a couple times a week. Like I tore it so bad I had to wear a sling. It hurt just for my arm to hang.
Yeah.
And so I did all of that work and I spent probably close to $10,000 with PRP, stem cells, physical therapy. I'm self-employed, so I didn't have insurance, so everything was out of pocket for me.
Yeah.
And I got to the point where it didn't hurt to hang. Like I could like walk around. I couldn't throw a football anymore. So with my boys, I can throw a mean left-handed spiral now. I can throw a baseball left-handed. So there was some benefit there. But I lost my ability, even though I could like move. I couldn't do a pull. I couldn't hang from a bar anymore. I couldn't do an overhead like shoulder press,
Hmm.
and I couldn't do an incline press. I could do a bench press, but very lightly. And I was just at this place, like, I guess this is just how it is. Like, I'm 44 now. Like, I guess
Yeah.
I can't really recover like I used to. Like, all of these beliefs or whatever, stories I was
Yeah.
telling myself. Well, I got on Fit and I got on all of them from the very beginning. And I lost, I've worked out for 15 years, but I lost 9 pounds in the first like 14 days. And I was like,
Wow.
I didn't even know I had 9 pounds to lose. That was crazy. And I felt awesome. But after 4 months, like I had almost full mobility in my shoulder again. I could do pull-ups
Mm.
again. I hit my PR on the bench press at 44. I hit it on the leg press just like a month ago. And so I think that one of the biggest things that I was super excited about is I just had lingering inflammation in that shoulder from
Yeah.
the injury. And just by taking Fit every day and continuing to lift weights, like I was able to reduce that inflammatory response. And I feel awesome. Like I go to the gym and I'm like, I don't have problems anymore. This is good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I tell you what, inflammation is such a it's such a bad underlying cause of so many other conditions in our body. And
Mhm.
I would equate when you've got that combination of muscle loss and inflammation together, it's devastating for people because you're not only losing your muscle, basically your resilience and your flexibility and your health and overall longevity, but you're also hurting so bad all the time. And that's such a dangerous combination because people don't like to go exercise and do things when they're in pain. And so I think that's one of the main benefits of Fit that I have, experienced with so many of our affiliates. I mean, I'm talking about tens of thousands of people that have used the product and their level of pain has gone down tremendously. And so, if you equate that to a pharmaceutical company would be really happy just kind of improving somebody's quality of life at 20%. That's not what Make Wellness is about. We don't stop at 20%. Like what you're talking about, if we would have improved your range of motion and your flexibility and your lack of pain by 20%, you probably would have been pretty happy.
Mhm.
But you know what? Why do we have to wait at 20%? Or why do we have to stop at 20%? Why can't we go to 30 and 40 and 50 and 60? And like in your case, why can't we just eliminate it completely over time?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of a bioactive peptide is we have that incredible ability to take these peptides that are highly concentrated, with very, very precise manufacturing processes, deliver them to a body where they can actually have that massive biological activity and influence over a lot of the things that we're experiencing, on a daily basis. So they're huge. It's Scottie. I've never seen anything like it. I've been in this business, with the exception of the 3 years that I was CEO of a pharmaceutical company, I've been in the health and wellness business since I was 23 years old, maybe, I guess, when I went to work for the very first company, which was a nutrition based company. I've never seen innovation like what we have here. And I've certainly never seen innovation that impacts people like this does. This is a game changer for, on so many levels for so many people.
Yeah. And I've seen that with hundreds of friends as well. I work out every day. My dad's 69 years old, and him and I go to the gym every day, 8:30 to 10. We meet, we lift weights together. I have him running through gauntlet workouts, like on the
Wow.
leg press, everything. One thing's he had a knee replacement 10 years ago, and I need to get him to tell this story more, but like when he stretches his quad, he pulls his, foot behind him. He, at the beginning, he had to pull his right leg over to his foot to his left butt cheek. It didn't go straight back.
Really?
And he had
Wow.
his knee replacement 10 years ago. And it's awesome. Like I'll see him stretching before a workout or after, and he's like, his heel will touch his butt on the same side. So he's got more
Wow.
movement in that leg as well. And
Yeah.
that's his experience too with like I see him putting muscle on at 69, but also having more mobility than he's had
Yeah.
before too. So it's been
Yeah.
incredible. Like, I'm
Get
like,
rid of that inflammation and you can do a lot of things.
I wanted to
Yeah.
shout it from the rooftop. I have a quick question because I love building muscle. This is for me. Why is it important? Why is sleep important? It's probably a
Oh
whole
my God.
topic, a long topic, but why,
Yeah.
why why should we focus on sleep if you're into health and wellness?
Well, look, sleep, there's a reason that sleep is one of the four pillars of health. And as you know, that's what Dr. Mark and I are teaching on right now on our Thursday podcast is we're going through the four pillars of health. We went through, the kind of the generally the whole four pillars 2 weeks ago. Last week was all about diet and nutrition.
Mhm.
This Thursday night's going to be about exercise. And next Thursday night's all about sleep. There's a reason it's by itself in its pillar of health because it's vitally important. Without proper sleep, your body cannot recuperate, regenerate, and basically restore itself from all the damage, no matter what that damage is that you've done through the day. When I talk about damage, I'm talking about damage from, maybe you've eaten a poor diet and your body needs to get rid of extra toxins. You do that while it's sleeping. Or maybe you've exercised really, really hard, some of that inflammation and soreness, you do that while you're sleeping. Or let's say maybe you've done some things to your brain and you need to detoxify your brain, for example, that only happens during deep detoxifying sleep. And so if you're not sleeping properly, there's no way that your body is possibly going to repair itself and restore itself and be ready to take on the next day. So yeah, sleep is incredibly important. But it is again, it's one of those pillars of health. And you got to sit there and look at all four of those pillars of health and say, okay, which one am I the worst at today? That's my most important pillar of health today. And it might change tomorrow.
Yeah.
You might not get to exercise tomorrow. So maybe exercise the next day becomes your most important pillar of health. But homeostasis between those four pillars and your mental and spiritual health is one of them, your sleep, your diet, and then your exercise. And so all of those things are vitally important. But sleep, no sleep. I said it the other day in one of our meetings, and people thought I was absolutely nuts. And they basically just say, well, that's that Texas Tech nose guard mentality. But I say it, if you're not sleeping, you're dying, and you really are, Scotty.
Mhm.
You really are. If you're not sleeping, you're killing your body. And so sleep is incredibly important for health, well-being, longevity.
Yeah. So I got a question. I love sleep. You don't have to convince me. Like I had a nap after my workout and before this podcast. Like that's how
Yeah.
much I love sleep. I needed to
Yeah.
recover. Um, so what Make Wellness has the restored peptide.
Mhm.
Um, I have a unique story with it. I used it in the trials and I saw some results and then I kept using it. I have my Aura ring right here
Yep.
and I ran out and I'd been tracking my sleep and my REM and deep sleep. I'm only in bed about 6.5 hours at night. Six. Most nights is like five.
Mhm.
close to 6.5 hours, and then I'll take like a nap in the day. And I have my numbers in the blue all the time on the Oura Ring now, which is REM sleep and deep sleep. So over an hour on both of them. Sometimes an hour and a half of REM, hour 15 of deep sleep. I ran out of my sleep peptide, the restored. The first night I was in bed the same amount of time. Guess how much deep sleep I had? I'm just going to tell you, 14 minutes.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
dropped from over an hour to 14 minutes. I didn't change. It wasn't like I had caffeine or I had extra screens or I stayed up extra late. Everything was exactly the same. I'm very routine.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that is impressive.
Yeah.
And
It's amazing because I remember when we were doing our in-house study, you and I had some conversations about that because at that particular time you weren't real impressed with the product. And I think
yeah.
my attitude was, well, just keep taking it, and you will be. And
Hmm.
so, it sometimes for some people it takes a little bit of time for a bioactive peptide to really kick in. And that could be for any number of reasons. We have seen people that maybe their gut health is not good. Maybe they've got some epithelium issues in their, intestines or their gut, and some leaky gut type situations or gut inflammation, or maybe they've got some neurotransmitter issues. Maybe they've got some stress issues. I mean, it's kind of hard to say because there's so many possible issues. But the thing about it is, and maybe they've got an underlying inflammatory condition, much like what you had. You
Hmm.
don't understand that the inflammation may have been originating in your shoulder, but it was probably impacting your entire body. And so when you have those underlying issues, until you get those underlying issues solved, sometimes you don't really think that the peptide is doing anything, when in fact it's actually doing a lot more than you think it is, because it's kind of helping to solve that underlying issue prior to really targeting those receptor sites that it what you hope it will target.
Yeah,
So
I'm glad you said that. Like I was right here drinking my energized peptide. Like I love the natural peptides. I literally feel like I can't go a day without fit or restored. The other ones I'm like I could go without the energy one. Like I could make it through the day.
yeah,
I could go without lean. I'm pretty disciplined in my nutrition and I'm pretty lean and built and have muscle, so I can burn fat. But like the fit and the restored, I'm like, I just feel like I can't go without that. But you
yeah,
brought up a unique thing that I wasn't gonna bring up, where I was like in the trials for restored, and I was like, not really working that. I can't really
yeah,
tell
yeah,
a difference. But it may, as you were saying that, because I hadn't really even processed this before, because I kind of forgot about that. Like I just go day to day, just like focused on the future and what I want to accomplish and do and who I can help. But I have seen so many people that'll be like, okay, I want to try that fit. Like I've seen like people at the gym see that I put on a lot of muscle over the past year. They see I'm more energetic, all of these things.
yeah,
Like I'm gonna try it. And then I'll check in and it's like they'll be like, "Oh, I didn't really notice anything." And it was like within a month and they try it
yeah.
and they stop. And so what do you say, like what do you feel that someone needs? How much time does someone need to give them? Because you said there could be all sorts of issues in the body. How much time should somebody give these natural peptides or a lifestyle shift and change?
Yeah, well, I think it's back. If you look at the philosophy that the company's talking about right now, it goes to that 90-day philosophy. I
Hmm.
think in 90 days, most people are going to see something. Now, in serious cases, and Scotty, we work with, a lot of healthcare practitioners, as you know. And so,
Yeah.
one of my main functions is working with those healthcare practitioners, understanding some of the scenarios that they're dealing with. And they're dealing with the most problematic of all patients, because if they didn't have problems, they wouldn't be going to a provider or practitioner to get assistance for those problems.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we see with our providers, our practitioners, is that sometimes it takes people 6 months, 9 months, depending upon how bad they are and what they're dealing with, before the peptides start performing their preferred, I'll call it a preferred function, because we all have these, preferences. We take certain things because we want to build muscle, or we take lean because we want to lose body fat. We want to rebalance our body composition. However, if you've got some other underlying issues, and here's what you've got to understand about bioactive peptides, and this is the difference between a bioactive peptide and a therapeutic peptide. A therapeutic peptide drug is one single peptide. It has one single function, very singular in nature. It only has one thing it's going to do.
Mhm.
A bioactive peptide, I'll give you an example right now. Fit has more than 4,000 other peptides in it, besides the main two that are really focused on as far as the benefits. Now, those 4,000 other peptides provide all kinds of additional benefits. They're not just there inertly,
Yeah.
they are there actively. And so, if your body has underlying causes or underlying issues, some of those other 4,000 peptides may be the preferred peptide to do some of these other things. But that's every one of our products. That's every bioactive peptide product. Whatever the main function is, there are a lot of other peptides that also provide additional benefits in that product.
Got you. That makes sense. So, man, I just want everybody to listen to this, or everybody I talk to, come listen to this podcast and know that it's going to take some time. Could take
Takes
3 months
time.
for one person, could take 6 months for another, depends on where you're at.
Good. It
I,
could. But
I have
I but at the same time, you got to understand something is being fixed, repaired in your body.
yeah.
Something is happening. You just may not feel it. But I'll tell you what, most people, if they've been on it for 90 days and they don't think that they've built a lot of muscle or they haven't lost much weight or something like that, and they get off the product, they'll find out real quick what that product was doing for them.
Yeah, I've
So
actually
no doubt.
seen that. Yeah, I had a really good friend that was on it for like 4 months and then he got off. He's like, oh, I got what I needed out of it. He was training for a Iron Man.
Yeah.
And here's an interesting story, like with Fit on that. He does the body scans where it tells you your bone density, fat, and
Yep.
everything.
Yep.
He does one of those every single year. He's 49 years old. This year he had his best time ever for his age group. And the interesting fact was it was the first time on his body scan that his muscle mass went up while his body fat went down. Every year he
Yep.
normally lost body or muscle mass because of how intensely he trained, his running and biking and swimming and lifting weights. And so that was really cool, but he got off of it and then shortly after, like within a week, he was like, "Oh, I don't feel like something feels
Yeah.
different."
Oh yeah.
So,
Well, when you get off of it, if you haven't entirely healed or if you do something to cause some damage to your body, then that inflammation is going to kick up and you're going to feel it real quick. You got to remember these products, they do not activate the negative feedback loop. So
mhm.
your body, we don't change the way our bodies function. We optimize the way our bodies function. And that's a big difference. We don't overstimulate, we optimize. We don't replace, we optimize. We don't substitute, we optimize. So we're not changing the way our bodies function in a way that we, replace a function or we try to take over a function
Mhm.
artificially. Exogenously would be the right term. We actually optimize the way our body functions naturally. And so that's a big difference in when you look at therapeutic peptide drugs, which replace versus a bioactive peptide, which optimizes. Very, very
Optimizing.
different.
I love that. Oh, I got a question. So my wife, she uses the Fit peptide as well. She
Mhm.
uses Calm, Fit, Energized. And I don't know if you've ever heard this before. This is unique. I haven't heard this, but she shared like she hadn't taken her peptide. She just got out of the routine. Like I'm
Yeah.
someone like I'm very structured and routine.
Yeah.
She got off of the Fit and she said she's like, man, I felt like I was feeling depressed. And not like just like she just felt off or different. And
Yeah.
she got back on it. What about the peptides you think made her feel not like herself in
Well,
that instance?
so does she exercise like you do? Does she
She does,
lift?
yeah.
Yeah.
She walks and does a light weightlifting.
Yeah. So one of the things that we know about the fit is that it actually enhances the expression of these little chemicals that are secreted by contracting muscles called myokines. And I know you've probably heard me talk about myokines because I'm a huge um, researcher of myokine function, and it's one of my main areas in sarcopenia prevention is how do we express more myokine, whether it's through secretion, big muscle activation, contraction, whatever. But how do we get more myokine expression from our big muscles? And so the thing about those myokines is that many of those myokines actually impact our brain in a variety of ways. So if she wasn't taking her fit, she probably wasn't getting the same level of myokine expression as she was previously when she was taking it. And so
Okay.
that's going to make somewhat of a difference.
Okay, that's interesting. I love
Yeah.
learning about the science of what's happening when we take these things. Well,
Yeah.
man, Alan, it's almost been an hour. This time flew by so fast.
Wow.
So
Seems like we've been talking for about 15 minutes,
I
Scotty.
know,
Man.
I know. I was looking, I was like, holy smokes, my kid's gonna walk in the door in here in just a minute.
Yeah.
If let's say the listener is sitting across from the table, sitting across the table from you, and they're not where they want to be in their life, health wise,
Mhm.
just not feeling like themselves. What advice? What would you tell that person? What
Well,
advice would you give them?
yeah. Well, foundationally, I would go with the four pillars of health, because it's really is very, very simple. And you start talking to that individual about, okay, how's your mental and spiritual health? What's going on with you spiritually? What's going on with you? Stress. I mean, what's happening on that aspect? And then you look at sleep. How do you sleep at night? Is your sleep good? Do you feel like your sleep is solid? Are you waking up refreshed the next morning? Are you waking up exhausted, dog tired, and don't want to get out of bed? You don't feel motivated to do anything. You don't feel productive. Then the next thing, of course, is how's your diet? I mean, what are you eating on a daily basis? And once you kind of figure out what they're eating and how that might impact, all the other pillars of health, then you start the exercise routine. And I think exercise is the one area for you and I, it's really easy. We've done it all of our lives. But
Hmm.
exercise is the one thing that is uncomfortable. It hurts. It causes us to have to work. And we live in a society that is just so broken on getting up and being physically active. Yet it's the one thing that really impacts all three of those other things at a massive, massive scale. And so, in the way that it does that is, of course, you're contracting those big muscles. And every time you contract those big muscles, guess what? You secrete myokines. And when our body secretes more than 600 myokines that impact every other organ in our body, from
Wow.
our brains to our skin to our microbiome, everything is impacted by exercise. And so that's kind of where I go. Anytime that I'm working with an individual, I use that four pillars of health as a foundation. It helps me build my questions. It helps me get some answers back. And then I can start to focus. Okay, we've really got to focus on your exercise, fit, and hydrated. We got to work on your diet. You need lean and hydrated. You might need some restored if we've got some sleep issues. How are your
Yeah.
energy, your productivity? What's going on there? You know what? Energized and focused. And we can build a program based on those four pillars of health really, really easily.
I love that. I'm gonna use that. I wrote that down here on my notebook here to make sure that I dial in on those four when I'm
Yeah.
questioning and working with someone. That was gonna be my last question, but I have one more that popped in my mind.
All right. No problem.
Just because I know so many people, both in their 60s and young guys that are 19, knocking doors, selling pest control and solar.
Yeah.
Energy drinks are like the what they love. Monsters, rock stars, Red Bulls. What what do you have to say about energy drinks and what they do to your body? Like,
Yeah. Well, as you probably know, I've got a little bit of experience with energy drinks,
I
and
do know
so
that. I forgot that until I asked that question because I was thinking
yeah,
of someone in
yeah,
particular. Then I asked that and I was like, oh, wait, I know something here.
yeah, yeah. So I created the very first 2 ounce energy shot on the face of the planet back in 2003. So it was a long time ago, 22 years ago.
Yeah.
And today that product, well, the first offshoot of that product actually does billions of dollars in revenue. I personally would never put that in my body today.
Mhm.
And the reason is because number one, it's loaded with artificial sweeteners that have been shown to impact our microbiome, impact our neurotransmitter production. So I would stay away from those artificial sweeteners. Every one of those energy drinks are typically sweetened with, sucralose or ACE K or some combination of sucralose and ACE K. Avoid that stuff like the plague because it's doing some really bad stuff, especially the more you drink. The second part of those artificial energy drinks, that overstimulation is not optimization. Okay. And when you're overstimulating, you're causing more long-term problems with your adrenal glands. You're going to actually increase the amount of stress that attacks your body because your body's not going to be able to handle that properly. So avoid those things. Make sure that you're going in and using something like energized and focused. If you'll use those two products together, which I'm going to tell you right there, for me, that was my PhD in a pouch and a capsule. So if you'll use the energized and the focus together, you're not going to overstimulate. You're going to optimize your brain's function. You're going to optimize the function of your adrenal glands. You're going to optimize your body's ability to handle stress. And it's much different than the overstimulation of those of the energy drinks. And so, I used to be a big proponent. I created them. I did. And I would, about 10 years ago, I made the decision to never put another one in my body, and I refuse to do it. I will not do it.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
One of my really good friends, Bernard, used to drink 3, 4 energy drinks a day, and he's absolutely in love with, like, if you
Mm,
go to his Instagram, it's like he's showing his energized peptide and
yeah.
how awesome he feels, not overstimulating with
Yeah.
300 milligrams of caffeine per can, 3 cans
Yeah.
a day.
Yeah.
And
I just must be fast up, fast down. And that fast down crash is hard.
yeah,
And so the more times you do that up, down throughout the day, the harder it gets. And so every time you do that, long term, that crash just gets more and more and more difficult. So yeah, I'd stay away from that.
let's drink more water. Water energized
Yeah.
and so focused.
Water,
Awesome.
hydrated. I tell you what, hydrated is phenomenal.
Dude, my
Phenomenal.
kids, my kids drink that like it's funny. I tell them every day, I'm like, you don't have to ask me. They're like, Dad, can I have a hydrated? He'll run out of the pantry. And I got
Yep.
5 kids, and they just love it. The dance, football, basketball, their sports instead of
Yep.
Gatorades, Powerades. Those don't exist for us. Just drink your
Yep.
hydrated, all you want.
Absolutely. And Scotty, you can't believe what we're seeing in some of our internal additional studies that we're doing with certain, physicians throughout the country. We're looking at hydration, intracellular and extracellular fluid hydration based on hydrated.
Hmm.
And that is so impactful on optimizing the function of the peptides. We are seeing, like, I've got doctors that I'm dealing with on a daily basis as far as the research side goes. They're blown away. They cannot believe the difference that they're seeing in intracellular and extracellular hydration using the hydrated product. And that is so impactful on how to optimize the function of our peptides because if you're not adequately hydrated, your peptides are not going to work. And that could be another underlying issue for some people of why they're not seeing the peptides work as effectively as they could. How hydrated are you? And that's a big question. I always recommend every single product you add a hydrated with it. And I do that. So,
Awesome. I hadn't heard that been said before. I work really closely with a friend here named Jared McDonald. He has
mhm.
a metabolism program, and he's like, he loves the lean peptide. He loves the fit peptide. He's helped over 1,500 women lose weight, like guaranteed lose weight over the age of 40.
Wow.
Charges thousands of dollars for his program, and he talks more about hydrated
Yep.
our hydration than anything else when he's working
Yeah.
with someone in their
Yep.
metabolism. He obviously gets them into fit and lean and whatever else they need, but
Yep.
he's like
Hydration is a
hydration,
major,
hydration.
yep, major problem. major problem. We are a very dehydrated society, no question about it.
Awesome. So we'll end this out with drink more water.
Exactly.
And hydrate yourself. Awesome. Alan, this has been an awesome conversation. I feel like I
Yeah.
could go another hour or two ask you questions, but we'll wrap it up here. Maybe we'll do round two in a few weeks or a few months and
All
circle
right.
back around on some other questions. But so
Abs-
grateful to have you on here.
Absolutely, Scotty. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate it. And I will look forward to doing another one soon.
Awesome. And I'll drop, it's the Peptide PhDs. Is that the name of the podcast?
The Peptide PhDs podcast. Yeah.
Awesome.
Apple, Spotify. We're on YouTube now. We're on just about every podcast, whatever you call those things. But
Awesome.
we're on just about every one of them now.
Okay, well, go follow those podcasts and they give lessons like this every Thursday. Awesome.
All right.
Thanks for being here.
I appreciate it, Scotty. Take care. Merry Christmas.
You too. Thank you for joining us on this episode. We hope that you enjoyed the conversation that we shared with you today. We're here to remind you that your family is your most important work on earth, help you feel better, and learn how to earn more income for your family. Make sure to follow the Peptide PhDs podcast. If you are interested in trying peptides or building a business with natural peptides, feel free to reach out to the person who sent you this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a positive review, clip what you like, or share it with a friend. My friend, it's time to level up.